Hi everyone, this is the second video for PPP for the 2021 academic year. As I said in the first video, and as I said in the synchronous session, which was great by the way, and I'll have a little bit more to say about that last week's synchronous session soon. PPP is meant to be topical, PPP is meant to be quite fluid. PPP isn't a traditional module in terms of here's the syllabus and we will rigidly follow that syllabus to the letter. That's the case for the coursework, but it's also the case in terms of how we lay out the material. And it struck me that it seems a little bit silly in the midst of this pandemic to not talk about the pandemic and to talk about in the context of PPP, which is, education plays a big role. Higher education, secondary education, right across the board is a big aspect of what we talk about in PPP most years. So given the current circumstances, it seems silly not to talk about, university education sooner rather than later in PPP. So I've moved forward a session called What is University or What is University For that we've had in previous years towards the latter end of the semester. But I've brought it forward to discuss it today because it's particularly pertinent to everything that's happening. So just before then, a sort of last time in PPP, so delivery of the primary content is going to be via these videos. Synchronous sessions are on Mondays at 4 p.m. I think pretty well all of you turned up for that. It was a very lively session. One thing I will say about that session, myself and Penny talked about it at length. We brought up some fairly contentious issues even in the very first session. And I'll apologise for introducing some topics sort of out of the blue when I should have done more to more gently introduce those topics and sort of forewarn you about what we were going to discuss. What we're going to do, what we ask you to do is if you have concerns at any time about the direction of any of those synchronous sessions, Penny and I are going to keep our emails open, our Outlook application running, so just email us directly, and that way you don't have to go through the Teams chat. If there's anything about those synchronous sessions you want to bring to our attention, or you feel that perhaps the topics haven't been introduced in quite the right way or whatever, so please do that. I will aim to get the synchronous session from last week, the video for that, online soon. That will need to be edited, as I said, and I will get that online as soon as possible. So the WordPress blog posts at the moment are just going to be really the embedded videos and, as you know, all communication and admin via Moodle. But I stress again, at any time you got any concerns, you got any queries, just email myself or Penny. We'll aim to get back to you as soon as possible. Reminder, the coursework deadlines, you can see them up there on the screen. Friday, October the 30th for the first article, which is 900 words, that's 30% of the module assessment. And then Friday, December the 18th for the broadsheet article, that's 2,100 words, 70%. As you know, the coursework is very flexible too. You can come up with whatever theme you like as long as it's broadly within the themes of PPP. So all we ask is that you run it past myself or Penny first. So drop us an email, say this is what I'm thinking about. What are your thoughts on this? Is this suitable? Is this appropriate for PPP? Vast majority of times, unless it's completely off the wall, we'll say yes, but just run it past us first. Today's session, synchronous session, is going to be about what's the value of university? And there are a few books up there. Two of them are actually by the same author, Stephen Collini, which are well worth reading. I'm not expecting you to read those before the synchronous session today, which is in 4 hours time, something like that. But in the longer term, they're well worth reading. The first book there, Manifesto for the Public University, is edited by a colleague here in Nottingham, John Homeward, who's in sociology, and has a range of different essays. Now that's from these books or sort of span about the last 8 to 10 years or so, but the questions are perennial in terms of what are universities for. In particular, there's been this long-standing idea that academics are cosseted from the real world within, dreaming spires and ivory towers. It probably was like that quite some time ago. It's no longer like that. It really is. And I would argue that universities are really an essential part of the real world. And there are pressures within universities that are the equal of those outside the dreaming spires and ivory towers, if you want to put it like that. So this is very, very worrying. This is from the Times Higher last year. And okay, it's the US. I understand that. And there's a bit more skepticism about the value of higher education and universities there. But it's well worth bearing this in mind. A Pew Research Center poll last month found that a full 38% of American adults think universities are having a negative impact on the country. Now, we can debate that and we can discuss the reasons for that, and that's something I hope we can do in the synchronous session, to think about just why that is the case. Why is there this level of skepticism about universities and the value of higher education? How that's tied in with the sort of concept of elitism and expertise and the devaluing of expertise, all those type of things. But that's a fairly shocking and scary statistic. Unfortunately, due to the vast sums of money involved, universities have gradually evolved, or not so gradually evolved, into corporations, into education corporations is probably the best way to describe them, with all the attendant jargon and nonsense, and I'll use the term bullshit, that accompanies an awful lot of the corporate world. Here are 5 sentences from mission statements from UK universities. Spot the common theme. Through research of international excellence to increase significantly the range of human knowledge and understanding, we seek the highest distinction in research and scholarship and are committed to excellence in all aspects of education. By bold innovation and excellence in all that we do, we want to rise further and be amongst the very few premier global universities. We will achieve this through the excellence of our research and teaching. The university combines academic excellence with an innovative and entrepreneurial approach to research. So that's what universities think they're about, delivering excellence, whatever that might mean. Think about excellence. What does that word signify? What does excellence mean to you? How do we get an objective metric for excellence? What's excellent to you may not be excellent to the next person. There are few words really that are as nebulous as excellence. And so what concerns me a little, and has concerned very many other academics, is that the university is evolving to this marketized corporate monolith that claims that it's in the game of improving students' critical thinking, and that's what we want to do. That's certainly what the academics want to do. But then we have mission statements like these which show no critical thinking at all and are basically boilerplate, cut and pasted from other universities' mission statements. I could bang on about this for some time, but what I'm trying to get across here is the difference between the sort of traditional view of the university, where it's ivory towers, searching for truth, about knowledge for knowledge's sake, curiosity driven. We've evolved quite far away from that over the last number of years, number of decades. League tables play an absolutely key role. In fact, so much of management of universities is based around chasing league table placements. That's a very dangerous strategy. Fortunately, here in the school, we've always been very cynical about league tables. Indeed, you were among the classes for which I was admissions tutor, and you probably heard me bang on even at the open days about the difficulties, let's put it that way, and the statistical illiteracy, as it's been called, of league tables. But they drive the entire higher education system. There's this great blog post that I'll refer to. It's at the physics blog, Why University League Tables Are Bad for You and What's Better, by our erstwhile head of school. Mike's just no longer head of school since September. August. Mark Fromhold's now head of school. This is a great blog post. I thoroughly recommend you give it a read. And at the bottom, while I was admissions tutor, at the bottom of all the emails that were coming from central admissions, and you'll have seen this before, was that bar at the top. All about customer satisfaction. You are the customer. So as you can see, a couple of articles there, Guardian articles. Why is my university forcing me to see colleagues as customers? Let students be students, not customers. Do you think of yourself as customers? Do you think about value for money? Do you think about the product you're getting? Or do you think there's more to university than that? Governments obviously see universities being an absolute key part of the economy, or both the knowledge economy and the financial economy. As you can see, there's 2 of very, very many reports over the last few decades in terms of the evolution of higher education. Of course, universities are there to educate, but on the other hand, there's the research component of universities as well. What is the role of that research? Let's talk about that. Why do we do research in universities? Should we just let private companies do all the research? What sort of research should we do in universities? What role should the public have in defining the direction of that research? Let's think about some of these questions in the synchronous session. That's like university for the real world. I just want to briefly describe why universities are as much a part of the real world as any other institution out there. And here's a good example. This is from 2014. This guy down in the bottom right here is somebody called Stephen Grimm, who was a toxicologist at Imperial College. And tragically, he committed suicide about 6 years ago due to the pressures of being told the level of grant income he should be securing for an academic of his standing. As you can see, Imperial College Professor Stephen Grimm was given grant income target. You can find lots about this online. I'll just read this first paragraph from his immediate manager, the head of department. I'm of the opinion that you are struggling to fulfill the metrics of a professorial post at Imperial College, which include maintaining established funding in a programme of research with an attributable share of research spend of 200k per annum, and must now start to give serious consideration as to whether you are performing at the expected level of a professor at Imperial College. The issue is this. Universities obviously want academics to bring in as much research income as possible. It's a business, and they want the business to be in rude financial health, or at least to keep its head above water. The problem is this. Let's say we've got an academic that brings in a £5 million grant on public money, and they produce, 10 papers. Let's say we've got another academic, and she pulls in a grant of, 100,000, and produces 10 academic papers. And those papers are of equivalent quality. Which academic has produced better value for money to the taxpayer? Is it this or this person? The university, of course, is very happy with the 5 million income, but whether that represents the best value for money to the taxpayer, and in terms of bang for buck, if you want to put it that way, in terms of research funding, that's another matter entirely. I thoroughly recommend, there are number of blogs I recommend. First of all, Richard Jones, who used to be at Sheffield, is now at Manchester. It's well worth looking up Richard Jones' blog. It's called Soft Machines, which seems a strange title, but he started off blogging about nanoscience, which is how I got into him. It's a nanoscience book called Soft Machines, is great as well. And then his blog gradually became more and more about socioeconomics, really, of research, how research and R&D plays into manufacturing and financial health, etc. And it's also tied into higher education. He was the PVC, Pro Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at Sheffield for a number of years. His blog, you can find it, just look up Richard Jones, just Google Richard Jones Soft Machines, you'll find it. Range of different, incredibly insightful blog posts about the role of R&D and universities in terms of, and the private-public balance in terms of the economy. Well worth a read. David Colquhoun, Colquhoun, who was at UCL for a number of years, is now emeritus. His blog is well worth digging out as well and having a read of. And also Dorothy Bishop here, who's a psychologist at Oxford. And she's been writing about these issues for quite a number of years now, and her blog is well worth following. I told you this video was going to be brief, which is quite remarkable for me because brevity is not my usual strong point. So here are some of the questions I'd like you to consider before the synchronous session. Why did you come to university? Did league tables influence your choice? And regardless of what I've said about league tables, don't feel embarrassed or shy to let us know if league tables did influence your choice. In some ways, you're going to use whatever information you've got available. So at some level, those league tables are providing some information, flawed though it may be. How has your perception changed over the course of your degree? Are you getting value for money now that so much teaching is online? Is online teaching better value for money? I am certainly working a lot harder in the online environment than I would do if this was traditional teaching. In many ways, going to a lecture theatre and talking at students for 50 minutes is a lot less effort than putting videos together and ensuring that there's a link between the videos and other resources in terms of simulations or interactive figures, or trying to make the online learning environment as coherent as possible. Takes a lot of effort. Is social mobility university's responsibility? Should student choices, utility, or economic value drive course availability? And big question to end up on, who should decide what research is done? Okay, so I hope we get a chance to discuss at least some of those questions in the synchronous session in a few hours' time. As ever, I'll stress again, just get in touch, drop us a line if you've got any queries at all or any concerns, and I look forward to seeing you in a few short hours' time at 4 o'clock for the synchronous session. Bye.